Good morning and welcome to Real Estate Matters on Super FM. I am your host, King Ray Realtor, with my co-host, Real Estate Matters. So we're going to go over our news, real estate related headlines before we dive into our full 1 hour. As we all know, we've gone from 30 minutes to an hour of discussing everything real estate. Trade fair complex demolition has been justified. Lagos state government insists that demolition was legal, citing Supreme Court judgment and owners' lack of building approval. Lagos waterways closure for E1 race that was from 2nd of October to the 5th. The event was a success. A lot of people got to participate in it, and Lagos hosted the world during the event. Flood prevention enforcement. Government enforcement continues in Ikota, which structures built on drainage setbacks being removed to prevent recurrent seasonal flooding. A lot of properties in those areas will testify or attest to this, and it's a change that many people look forward to. Although, of course, the investors and owners of the properties that are being demolished would protest against that. Land use charge bills released. Lagos State government releases the 2025 land use charge bill, offering a 15% discount for early payment. Affordable housing is key. I think that is an event that was where it was discussed that the need for affordable housing in Nigeria is very important. And the event was held by FIAPSI Nigeria during the World Habitat Day, which was on Monday. They had several real estate professionals speaking about the need for affordable housing and the role of sustainable housing, the need for sustainable housing as well in Nigeria. Legal Business Conference, a major conference titled Real Estate as a Catalyst for Economic Growth, is scheduled to hold in Lagos on October 14th, 2025. And there's also Real Estate Summit 2025, which is a one-day event tagged The Billionaire's Blueprint. Is scheduled to hold on Saturday, October 11th, 2025. Lagos Tenancy Bill Update. A draft of the Lagos State Tenancy and Recovery Premises Bill 2025 highlights some new rules on payments, receipts, and penalties for forcible eviction. Okay, that kind of covers most of what we most of the headlines relating to real estate for today. We're going to go on a short break, and when we get back, we're going to dive into our topic for today, which is in relation to flooding. We've been talking about flooding for the past 3 episodes, where we've had people call in, share their experiences with issues in their areas and what can be done to help prevent flooding in your area, or at least to help know or see signs to look out for when moving into a new location to help protect your property or protect your home from flooding, especially during this rainy season. We'll be back on Real Estate Matters after the break. Welcome back, real estate enthusiasts. I am still your host, King Ray Realtor, and today we're talking about issues surrounding collapsed buildings and also regarding flooding in certain areas. So before we go into that, we're just going to go over some other news headlines that we had omitted earlier. Association advocates housing policies to boost Nigeria's economy. The Association of Housing Corporations of Nigeria, AHCN, has called for appropriate policies that would position the nation's housing sector to remain the engine room for economic development. Housing Network blames graft for rising illegal projects. The Housing Development Advocacy Network has warned that corruption in government approval processes is fueling the rise of illegal housing projects. In its statements, the group observed rising concerns over the recent waves of demolition of completed houses and estates across Nigeria. Lagos begins clearance of illegal buildings on the Ikota River right-of-way. Lagos State government has started demolishing illegal structures built along the setback of Ikota River in Lekki. The government said removal notices were issued earlier in 2025 after inspections. It added the enforcement was necessary because several buildings were erected on the river right-of-way, thereby blocking natural water channels and worsening flash flooding, especially along Lekki-Ajah corridor. PropTech revolutioning, transforming the property market. The chairman, Nigerian Institute of Estate Surveyors and Valuers, NIEV's Lagos branch, Mr. Tosin Kadiri, has said the infusion of technology into real estate is revolutionizing the industry and transforming Nigeria's property market. He noted that the transformation is being driven by rapid urbanization, rising security concerns, and the growing demand for efficient living solutions. Lasera partners with firms to tackle fraud. The Lagos State Real Estate Regulatory Authority, in partnership with Lucy Green Properties and Andy Afrique Properties, has launched the maiden edition of Realtors Connect, a platform designed to strengthen credibility in real estate sector and tackle the rising cases of fraud by unregistered practitioners. The initiative will train realtors and real estate agents on best practices for global recognition and credibility in the industry. Housing Ministry scraps paper memos and goes digital. The Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development has announced that it will no longer accept paper memos following the launch of its electronic content management system. According to its permanent secretary, Dr. Shaib Belgore, the ESMS will streamline operations, speed up decision making, and enhance document accessibility and tracking. Lagos State government faults Mr. Peter Obi over comments on trade fair demolition. I think that, yes, again, that covers some of the news headlines that we were trying to cover the last time. We're going back into our discussion for today. Well, we have a call. Please hold on. Let's just go through the topic for today and then you can resume calling for us to discuss. Numbers to call still are 07056900927 or 08025027711 or 08029788003. You can also send us a WhatsApp message 07056900927 or 09037142798. I know someone had commented last time that we need to repeat the numbers, so I'm going to repeat the numbers again. 07056900927 or 08025027711 or 08029788003. Okay, so our conversation today, before we go into the flooding issue, we're going to cover issues surrounding collapsed buildings in Nigeria. I know, we already have a call. Let's pick this. Hello, this is Real Estate Matters. May I know who I'm speaking with? Oh, we lost that call. Hello? Hello? Okay. We lost that call. The continuous trend of building collapse incidents has always raised concerns. I believe we've discussed this some episodes back, and we've had special guests come on the show to talk about the issues regarding collapsed buildings in Nigeria, about the safety and integrity of structures across the country. During the last episode, we talked about the insecurity in Nigeria, where we had covered insecurity with regards to robberies, and we also covered insecurity with regards to building credibility and integrity, and what security and how safe you feel in your home. The Building Collapse Prevention Guild, that is BCPG, said that the first building collapse in Nigeria occurred in October 1974 in Oyo State, resulting in about 27 deaths. Since then, there have been numerous incidents, including the tallest building collapse in Lagos on November 1st, 2021, which killed about 52 people. BCPG reported 635 incidents and 1,574 deaths between 1974 and September 2024. Annual cases have ranged from 45 collapses in 2020 to a record 62 in 2022, with Lagos State consistently leading in the number of incidents and casualties, unfortunately. At the dreadful end, total deaths between 1974 and 2024 amounted to about 1,574 deaths, with 2022 recording the highest 62 incidents nationwide. Lagos accounts for a significant portion of incidents, with 18 of the 45 collapses in 2020, 20 of the 62 in 2022, and 17 of the 52 in 2023. According to the 2025 Hazard Mitigation Plan, New Orleans in the US, in the United States of America, a collapsed building is a sudden structural failure, partially or entirely, of a building threatening human life and health. And it stated that it occurs when internal load-bearing structural elements fail, causing a building to collapse into itself, with exterior walls pulling into the falling structure. In addition, investigations by the Guild revealed that professional ineptitude, including excessive loading, use of substandard materials, faulty design, poor workmanship, and weak foundation, contributed significantly to the collapses. While the Council of Registered Builders of Nigeria has called for sanctions on developers responsible for the collapse of buildings, the issue raises concerns about the sacrifices of innocent lives at the expense of substandard operations. So let's just go a bit into some of the causes of collapsed buildings and some of the things that we can look out for when investing in a property. I know that one of the properties that had collapsed in Ikoyi, after the collapse, a lot of people who had invested in it had to forfeit their investments as losses, and lives that were also lost. Families had to be compensated for lives lost. So here are some of the causes of building collapses. We have poor material and construction. A lot of times you find developers cutting corners and importing poor quality or lesser quality items. I don't want to say from China, but a lot of times they get it from places that they feel they get a cheaper product, and the people who live in the properties are the ones that get better the consequences of the poor materials that's being used for construction. And then you have also weak foundations or inadequate foundation design can also lead to instability. Also, the use of poor quality concrete, steel, or counterfeit materials that weakens the structure. One of the things that I look out for as a real estate professional when I'm going to a site is especially when the site is under construction, what are the workers doing during construction? How kitted are they? Are they wearing their helmets? Are they wearing their vests? What is the scaffold made up of? Metal, bamboo? How much bamboo is being used? Is this scanty? If a developer is skimming off costs by using very few bamboos, if not any, if no scaffolding, that's an indication that this person is going to be skimming off costs on a lot of things. Also, when you go to a property, sometimes just looking at the walls, especially when it's under construction, looking at the walls to see how the concrete that's being used, how it breaks between your thumb, is also a sign of substandard products being used. And then, of course, there's also the piping electricals are being used, asking questions. Yes, I know a lot of us are not developers and we don't know much about what's going on. But when you go to a property that's under construction, you can see, I mean, with substandard products, a lot of times there are telltale signs. You can see some of the pipes, you can try to pinch it, bend it, see what it's like, right? I'm not saying you should damage a product or damage anything within a property, but just ask questions, look around. And then of course there's also on the signage of every property where they indicate the professionals that are involved in the development of that property. This is a standard that Lagos State has enforced, that any building, I think Nigeria has enforced, that any building that's going up, details should be put, the architects, the engineers, those details. Sometimes just looking at them, inquiring as to who this engineer is, who is the project manager of this property, who is handling electricals, who is handling plumbing, and the other parts of the construction. Those questions, and then interrogating to ensure when you see the steel bars sticking out of some parts of the building, just go and have a look at it to test for yourself quality. We have another call coming in. Hello, this is Real Estate Matters.
Good morning. This is Antonia from Ojo.
Hello, Antonia from Ojo.
Good morning, ma.
Good morning. Thank you for calling.
I'm enjoying the topic.
Oh, yes.
Trend of building collapse.
Mm-hmm.
Please, you said Lagos is leading in this building collapse.
Yes.
Does it mean that we don't have a good land in Lagos that buildings can stand on?
No, that is not the issue. I think the issue is mostly because. Thank you very much, Antonia.
I have another question.
Okay.
The second question is, there are some developers in my area. They are trying to put up like 2 to 3 buildings.
Yes.
But there's no a kind of gutter or drainage. So they are trying to do the drainage that will lead to a canal themselves. Yes. So what is the work of the local government chairman in this when the owner of the building is trying to build the gutter for him?
Mm-hmm.
After allocating all these funds for the construction of gutters and canals,
yes,
is he going to return that money to those developers? Or I want to know, because I see no reason why those people building that house should build the gutter.
It is still our responsibility. Yes, I agree. Thank you very much, Antonia Homojo. Yes, I agree. The structure of gutters, yes, the local government gets to oversee the structure, the flow. They get to advise property owners on how wide it should be, the clearing of it. So sometimes when there's blockages in those gutters, local governments, they're involved in helping clear it in some areas. But as a developer, you still have the responsibility, or as the owner of a property, you have the responsibility to acknowledge the setback you need for the gutters, the structure that you're putting in place for the gutters, and the flow of where your gutter is going to. So you don't do a gutter, put slabs on it and then it blocks somewhere, you just put a concrete wall. So that way, when that is being put in place, the local government is also involved. They work hand in hand with the developers to ensure that it's being done right and it's flowing to the right location. So example would be like the Ikota water area that we were talking about earlier, where we mentioned that some buildings were built blocking those drainages. That's where the local government and the institution that oversees that will are meant to advise from the onset how that structure should be put in place, the flow of it. We have another call. Hello. Hello.
Is this Real Estate Matter?
Yes, this is Real Estate Matters. Good morning. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Okay, my name is Aoili.
Okay.
I'm calling from Ogun State.
Okay.
I'd like to make a contribution.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ari from Ogun State. Please share your contribution on the topic for today.
Okay. All right. So,
Hello.
hello.
Okay, we cannot hear you right now. I think you have to turn down. Hello.
Yeah. Could I say that there used to be the Standard Organization of Nigeria.
Okay.
They used to make sure that products that we buy, they were standardized. But these days, I see that when you go to buy steel, for instance.
Yes. Hello.
Okay. When you go to buy materials for construction, you'll notice that when they say this bar or this rod is 20 mm, if you measure it with the caliper, you see that it gives you something like 18 mm. And when you go to buy wood, this height used to be a specific height. When you go to buy diesel, you see that they have cut it short. All of these products that we use for building are no longer the thickness that they used to be. And nobody seems to care about how thick or how long these things are. Now, this affects both the costing and the quality of building that we are having.
Yes.
The Standard Organization of Nigeria, and there should be an agency that regulates, that determines that this is the standard, and people should make sure that they comply. But these organizations don't seem to be alive to their responsibilities anymore. They are a part of the mess that we're having with collapsed buildings and so on.
Oh, wow.
And then I also want to contribute to what the other lady was talking about local government and their responsibility.
Yes, sir.
We may be responsible as landowners for building the gutter in front of our house. It didn't used to be like that. But then, these gutters must be coordinated in such a way that they lead to a drainage point. So when individuals are just digging the front of their houses, that doesn't amount to anything, because you are not going to be able to do that till you get to a draining point. So the local government used to be very much alive to that responsibility. I don't know why you are exempting them. Because
I'm not exempting them, sir.
it's their job. It's their job. They are local government. The local government is no longer active. Everybody's just looking at the federal government. The state government used to have its specific rules. The local government used to have its specific rules. I mean, in Europe, the local government is the one you see. They are the ones doing all the jobs that relate to your safe existence. Now, what's happening now is that everybody's just looking at the federal government, blaming the federal government for everything, and that's just not right. That's not on.
True.
What's happening to our state government? What are they doing? I mean, is it just to vie for positions, and then after vying for the position, you don't know your job? Then why are you vying for local government chairmanship? Is it just to have money to spend to do other things? Local government has a very critical role to play in making sure that our communities run well.
True.
That's my opinion. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Ari from Ogun State. Yes, you are right. The local government does have, they do have their own responsibilities with regards to the gutters, the flow of waters within those areas. And yes, they do get to oversee. They go beyond just overseeing it, and they do have some budgets for the roads in those areas and gutters. But what I was saying, I'm not defending them or removing them from responsibilities. What I was saying is that developers and property owners also have a role to play, right? Because at the end of the day, you get approvals for your property, you get approvals for the setbacks in front of your property, and when you are doing the construction, you also get to put in place what you the gutters that you are going to use, that you're going to place in front of your home, right? So it's a hand-in-hand thing. The community and local government, we shouldn't just remove ourselves from this situation. It's a hand-in-hand thing where your local government chairperson and your property owners within those areas are meant to work hand in hand to make everything flow smoothly, right? And yes, within about the standard organization of Nigeria, SON, I believe yes, they are also involved in quality check for, and we agree that there are a lot of issues in Nigeria when it comes to importing and people importing substandard products, and what is being imported being what is being recorded as one thing being a different thing. I think there are certain places that you can report. That's why they have the whole see something, say something. There are certain ways you can report such substandard products from a vendor or from a distributor of a particular product. So if you are developing a project now and you have ordered for a certain number of items and you have a certain requirement and a substandard product is being delivered, and you know that you have paid for the quality, a better quality, then yes, I believe there are certain you can raise charges with the SON, that Standard Organization of Nigeria, and I think EFCC also is involved in some way in situations like that. Although I know that some Nigerians, because of the stress involved, they will just say, let's leave it to God. But I think we should also try to take some responsibility with regards to helping improve on the situation that we find ourselves in. Okay. With regards to Antonia's question, Madam Antonia Fomojo's question about the local government, I hope we've answered your question. And of course, as we go on with the topic, we still have 2 more episodes to cover on substandard products in development and the issues of building collapse. And we'll have an expert come on the show to share with us some of the policies that have been put in place and how the governments and the local governments are fighting or helping protect people in their homes. Okay. Yes, and as with regards to Lagos State having the highest number, that is mostly because we have most of the new buildings that are coming up. A lot of them are happening here in Lagos State. Right. I'm not saying that there are no new buildings going on in other parts of Nigeria, but there's a higher number of buildings coming up here in Nigeria, in Lagos State especially. We still have a housing we still have a housing shortage here in Lagos State. We still have people asking, why am I coming from, like Mr. Irie from Ogun State? I'm sure he comes from Ogun State into Lagos, and we have a lot of people that stay on the outskirts of Lagos State that work between there and come into Lagos. They're using trains, using public transport to move between the two locations. So at the end of the day, that's the reason why there's a high number of it's not because of our sand. Yes, the foundation, integrity of the foundation does affect the buildings that's being put up, but it's more about there being more people here in Lagos State trying to cut corners and getting substandard products. And as one of our callers, that's our caller from Ogun State, mentioned, sometimes you order for one thing, you have your items delivered, and you realize that is not what you had requested for your building. It's an unfortunate situation, but it's something that we find ourselves in, and it's something that we have to, speak. It's something that we have to speak against or try to fight against as best as we can. We have another message on WhatsApp. You have done justice to my question. Okay, thank you very much. We have another call coming in. Hello. Good morning. Still on Real Estate Matters. I'm King Gray Realtor. May I know your name and where you're calling from? Hello. Okay, we cannot hear you, so you have to drop the call and call back. All right, so some of the causes, we're still discussing some of the causes of building collapse. Faulty construction practices, where we have incorrectly mixed materials or poor workmanship, results in insufficient strength. So people mixing the wrong okay, we have the call coming back. Hello.
Yeah, morning. Hi.
Hello.
Okay. My name is Real Estate Doctor.
Real Estate Doctor, good morning. What part of the world are you calling us from?
coincidentally, I'm calling from Lagos.
Okay.
I'm stuck in traffic somewhere. That's why I couldn't meet up with the show.
Well,
But
we know how Lagos can be. Hello? Hello, real estate doctor. You're going to have to call us back as we cannot hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, yes, we can. Okay, so
Yes,
please share your insight on today's topic regarding building collapse.
So it is obvious that the issue of building collapse, I want to say categorically that our government is overwhelmed, particularly a state like Lagos State.
Lagos State.
The government is overwhelmed, yes. I recall also vividly that we've had more than 5 cases this year with the issue of building collapse.
Yes.
And I think that it is becoming very embarrassing for a state like Lagos to keep having these menace all the time.
And you will statistically have the highest number in Nigeria.
Guess what? Nigeria has the highest number of building collapse globally in the whole world, with over 600 cases all over the world. Nigeria has the highest number, yes. I think that this
real estate doctor, we can't hear you clearly. The call seems to be breaking. Okay. The call was breaking there. Okay. The call was breaking there. We're still talking on today's topic, that's issues surrounding collapsed buildings in Nigeria. And right now we were on causes of building collapse. One of our callers, Mr. Ayuri from Ogun State, had mentioned the fact that some organizations that have been put in place to check and ensure that quality is being brought into Nigeria, that they don't function anymore, and that's true. Another caller from Madam Antonia from Ojo had mentioned that gutters and drainages should not be done by individuals or by the local government. Hello? Okay, we lost that call as well. Okay, so yes, with regards to the faulty construction practices, there's also design errors. A lot of times, some of these developers, instead of getting proper design, they get students to create their design for them, and then the structure. Hello? Okay, we've had a lot of calls coming in. Real estate doctor, I hope you are also trying to call us because we couldn't hear part of what you said, and we are still waiting for you right here in the studio. So with regards to design errors, you find that some designers there's an incident that I know of where a designer designed a property because he was not a full architect. The property was backwards, meaning that he had copied it from some other blueprint, and in his copying it had flipped it on the side, right? And the engineers and everybody had to start figuring out. I think they had already gone to a certain level before they realized that this building, it seems like it's flipped upside down backwards to what is actually here. And the fact that is even a problem indicates how some people cut corners even from the inception of the building by using substandard products and getting unqualified experts or unqualified people to consult with them or to work with them when they should be getting experts because they're trying to cut back on costs. Illegal conversions, unapproved or illegal alterations and conversions can compromise structural integrity. For instance, when you get approval for a 3-story building or a 2-story building, and you find some developers or some property owners building extra floors on top of it. That was one of the causes of the building that collapsed in Ikoyi. That was, I think, last year or last 2 years. Last 2 years. and where the developer was part of people that was part of the victims of the building, where a certain number of floors had been given approval and then extra was put on top of it. And you find that happening in other parts of Lagos State. You find that happening in other parts of Lagos State, where people get approval from local government or from the building, and then they get to certain floors and they add extra floors on top of it to make extra money. So if it's supposed to give them 12 apartments, they want to double on that and build 20, and then they add extra floors to get those 20. And what you find is the foundation was built and designed for 12 floors, and then it starts to have issues, and those compromise now lead to the unfortunate collapse of the building. There's also lack of maintenance. Poor upkeep and lack of regular inspections contributes to structural degradation. I think that would take us to those buildings that were demolished along close to Bagada. Yes, where they had said, and I think that was where there was a protest and all, where they had said some of the structures were yes, that's the place. Some of the structures were no longer good based on how they've not been managed. You see some buildings, you pass by it, you see the pipes are leaking. They have the green slime on the side of the wall. You see lots of cracks. Some of them, in fact, you see that they've tried to plaster the crack, and there's another crack beside the crack or inside the crack, and you know that this is a foundation problem. And instead of them to inform the residents to move out so that they can do the right thing, they keep trying to patch it up until some unfortunate incidents where the building then collapse. There's also the issue of rusting, damage to steel reinforcements from water seepage or other factors can lead to structural weakness. There's also the issue of water flooding, water within an area, flooding, constantly affecting the foundation and the building's integrity that then lead to the building tilting or collapsing. Because I've seen a building that was tilted in one way, and it was due to the place constantly getting flooded and the foundation being affected. We have another call coming in. Hello, this is Real Estate Matters.
This is Antonia calling back.
Okay, hello Antonia from Ojo.
I would like to know the difference between this land use charge and the tenement rate.
I didn't get that. Land use charge and what?
This rate, is it tenement rate or what is it called?
Okay. One
I would like to,
okay. One.
Listen over the radio.
Okay. Thank you very much, Antonia from Ojo. Okay. One being for the property owner, and then the other being in regards to tenancy and all. But we'll dive deeper into that topic during some other episodes. For now, let's just cover our topic of today, which is the issue of property buildings, property building collapse and flooding in some areas. Okay, we've been on the call for a while. It has been a very exciting conversation. We still have calls coming in, but we're going to go on a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation. Today's conversation on building collapse in Nigeria.
2.7 Super FM. Real Estate Matters with the Real Estate Doctor and his co-host, King Ray, on Super FM 92.7 Lagos.
Every Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 12 noon.
This show brings you an understanding of the business of real estate. Follow us on our socials at real_estate doctor and at ray.realtor. For sponsorship and advertisement, call us on +234 802 735 1727. Powered by Media House Promotions and ODOT Communications. Real Estate Matters, only on Super FM 92.7, where real estate matters.
Good morning, still morning. I am still your host, King Ray Realtor, and this is Real Estate Matters on Super FM 92.7. Okay, so we've been discussing so far building collapse in Nigeria, issues surrounding collapsed buildings in Nigeria, and we had mentioned earlier that Lagos State has one of the highest numbers of incidents in here in Nigeria, and real estate doctor had called in to say Nigeria actually has the highest in the world, which is unfortunate with so much deaths. I think we had mentioned the fact that up to 1,574 deaths, which 2022 having the highest. That was post COVID, and our conversation right now, we're talking on building causes of building collapse. We had covered poor materials, where one of our callers, Mr. Ariwi from Ogun State, had called to mention Standard Organization of Nigeria doesn't seem to be playing its role of ensuring that the quality of what is being, the standard of what's being brought into Nigeria is retains, is the standard that's expected. So he had given an example where somebody orders for a certain number, a certain size of steel, and gets a substandard size, where we had advised reporting and flagging such incidents. Another caller, Madam Antonia from Ojo, had called to talk about drainages and gutters, and why, asking why owners or developers should be the ones constructing it, and where the local government comes in, or where they should come in to resolve that issue or handle that issue. So still in line with causes of building collapse, we had talked about poor materials, faulty construction processes, design errors where people use the wrong professionals or don't use professionals at all, illegal conversions, lack of maintenance, rusting. Then we also have natural disasters, which is what we're talking about, floods and other extreme weathers that test structures which don't have, they're not built to test, they're not built to the quality that they should be built. I think that will take us to, there was an earthquake that was in I think that was in Malaysia or an Asian country, and they had you had people testifying to the fact that high-rise buildings were shaking, but you could see that the building was built with such integrity, with so much work, like so much they do what they call it, they test the quality of what they are building, that even post earthquake, not the amount of properties that were affected, that collapsed or were damaged, was very little. So even us saying that natural disasters like flood, we don't have earthquakes in Nigeria, so we can't even say that is part of natural. Aside from, yes, we have flood, but flooding, I feel in Nigeria, especially in Lagos State, is a man-made problem, with our drainages being blocked, and so the waters are not flowing right way. You have buildings being mounted in places that they shouldn't be, right? And then these things contribute to the building being put in way of a flood or water flowing in that area. But yes, floods and other extreme weathers do cause natural disasters, do cause building integrity or building collapse. We also have corruption. I think that will also take us to one of the callers that had mentioned the fact that certain organizations are not doing what they should be doing. Corrupt practices by government officials can lead to approval of substandard plans and materials. It extends to ineffective monitoring and enforcement of building standards by regular bodies, contributing to the problem. So what are some of the signs that we have to that we can look out for? Signs a building may be at risk, right? Cracks on buildings, on the walls, on the floors, or the ceilings. When you go into a new environment, when you go into a new building, you want to move in as a new tenant, and you're seeing cracks everywhere. Or even if sometimes they patch up the cracks, you see the there's signs that there was a crack here, right? And you see where the crack is coming from the ground, or you see how the crack is going on the walls. Those are signs that there's something wrong either with the foundation or the quality of the materials that have been used. Dampness of water, leakages. So when a building is supposed to have certain protective paintings or glaze to protect it from water in the area or damages, you see that once you go into a house or a new compound, you see lines outside that show that it's not just the lines, like the wall has started to deteriorate because of the damage that water has, affect how much damage water has impacted in that area. Those are signs. Even within the house, when you go into the property, you can see the walls where the AC vents are. You can see that the walls, the paint has been damaged. The wall itself is starting to fall apart. And those are things that you can look out for. It shows you that, first of all, the plumbing was not done right. If the plumbing is not done right, you can see the leaks on the sides of the wall causing that green fungi from outside. Even if they scrape it and repaint it, there's always signs that there's some damage going on in this area. Then, of course, there is sagging and bulging roofs. You go into a building, you see the POP is already tilting in a certain way, and you know that if I want to see, if you put a bed under this place and you're looking at it, it looks like it's about to drop on top of your head. There's just that slight tilt or slight bend in the roof, and you're thinking, and this, they will tell you, don't worry, we'll patch it. That's a red flag. That's something that you should be wary of. And you should find out what is the reason why this roof is tilting like this. Why is it bulging like this? And then there is the building itself tilting. I know that sometimes when you're passing a building, when you're living in a building, you might not notice that slight tilt. Yes, but you can see it sometimes. Just that slight second. This building looks like it's bending somehow. Those kind of things you look out for, and you protect your family and your home against such. Separation of movement of doors and windows. That's another thing that some people overlook. You see when a door starts to scrape the floor, sometimes that's just a sign that thing is leaning in a certain type of way. When you see the windows are no longer adjusted or closing, all those small signs that this structure was built with people not paying attention to details. Those little details, how the door is tilted, how the window fits, how it closes and opens, are things that you look out for when you are inspecting a property that you want to move into. And then, of course, there's signs of termite damage or rust of steel reinforcement. And then, as I mentioned, for those who invest in properties before it is fully erected, that is when you go in to inspect while they are building the property, you do test the wall, integrity of the wall, pinch it a bit to see how it falls apart, see the tiles that are being used, the windows that are being used, ask to see the pipes as well, to say, what kind of pipe are you using? Ask those questions. Where are they coming from? And then a lot of times with new developments, you see that some of the materials have been put close to the building. Just go there and have a look and ask questions about it. Okay, we're still on today's topic. We didn't even get to go into the second topic, which is flooding and water crisis in Lagos State and in Nigeria. But we're going to go on another quick break. And when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation. I'm still your host, King Ray Realtor, and this is Real Estate Matters. Okay, welcome back to Real Estate Matters, Real Estate Enthusiasts. This has been an amazing session, and we didn't even get to dive into the second half of our show, which is regards talking on flooding and all that. Just go through a brief recap on what we talked about today. Today we covered the issues regarding real estate property collapse. We talked about how to protect yourself, how to protect your home, signs to look out for. We talked about the fact that there are certain organizations that exist, like the standard organizations of Nigeria, that exist to check and ensure that the quality of what's brought in is the standard that's expected. We talked about the role that local governments play in your environment when it comes to gutters and waterways in your area. We also talk about the fact that we as individuals also have a role to play when you're building your home, or when the developer is building a home. Yes, the role of doing gutters is the local government responsibility, but you also ensure the setback and the gutters are in place. And a lot of times, some of these projects, there's already a gutter existing in that place. You just have to ensure that you don't block that gutter. You ensure that you create the slab that you need to go into your house for that property. So some of the news highlights that we had covered, we talked about the Lagos State E1 Racing Championship, and we talked about the FIAPSI event, World Habitat Day, that held on Monday, where they had covered some of the importance of sustainable building and the how to prevent flooding and some of the issues, and the what do you call it, the inability of some of the issues with getting unprofessionals to build your building or to work with when you're doing a structure. One of the events that we have coming up, Renewed Hope Housing by Sweet Housing and Construction Exhibition and Trade, Southwest Housing and Construction Exhibition and Trade. The topic is Renewed Hope Housing, Driving Regional Developments. Event is organized by Southwest Housing and Construction and Trade Exhibition in conjunction with the Ogun State government. It's holding on the 7th and the 8th at June 12 Cultural Center, Kutu, Abeokuta. Okay, that was a fantastic show. I'm looking forward to next week when we come back on Real Estate Matters. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for the calls, and we'll be expecting more feedback, more conversations with you next week. I am still your host, King Ray Realtor. See you next week.